Movie theaters are finally opening back up, and I, like most insects, flocked to my local theater once I saw the bright neon lights come back on. It's weird watching a movie wearing a mask, but then again you have people who cosplay when they go and watch movies. I like having to sit 2 seats away from people because I don't like sitting next to strangers. Of course, this doesn't stop most people because I saw entire rows filled with people. I didn't watch any trailers for this because I think most trailers spoil too much information. All I know is it had something to do with reversing time. It was alright. I haven't seen many Christopher Nolan films aside from the Dark Knight trilogy and Dunkirk. Compared to those films, I'd put this one on the bottom of the list. It's not a bad movie, just not as good when compared to the other films. Yes, that includes Dark Knight Rises. Fuck you, that one's my favorite.
Where's the trigger?
Does Christopher Nolan just have a problem with audio mixing? Because I found myself not understanding what most people were saying in a couple of scenes. Or when somebody would have a mask on, their dialogue would just be boosted louder than pretty much everything else around them. I'm not spoiling anything because I don't want to talk about plot too much. Just things I liked and didn't like. I like that the main character calls himself the protagonist, and so do a couple other characters. And John David Washington did a good job portraying him. There's a couple scenes where he makes quips in serious situations that seemed out of place, but I can get past that. Robert Pattinson seems to keep rising on my list of favorite actors. Most movies I've watched him in recently, he's been really good in, and he's also pretty good in this film. But a good chunk of everyone else in this film comes off as emotionally dull though. Like they're trying to stop World War III and everyone's talking like they just woke up or something. Other than a couple dull performances though, it's a really good looking movie. I mean, it's a Christopher Nolan film, so of course it looks good. I mean, yeah, you still have your issue of filming in IMAX for one shot, and then it cuts to a different shot, and then you have this letterbox. They should just start putting fake letterboxes on all the IMAX shots, because that gets really annoying whenever it keeps switching in between in the same scene. There's a really cool action scene that takes place at an airport terminal near the middle of the movie that I thought was pretty cool. But then we get to my issue of the film, and it's the storytelling. Most of the film leaves you wondering what's going on, and only by the last portion of it all does it seem to make sense. The main character will be in one situation, and then it'll be a hard cut, and he's in a completely different location talking with someone else about what just happened. Also, the film edits its dialogue the same way I edit my videos, in that it'll just cut out the pauses in between two people talking, and it doesn't give you any breathing room for the flow of the conversation. This movie was about 2.5 hours long, and it feels longer than its runtime. The film just seemed to know when to throw in an action scene, because right when the dull conversations were starting to drag, an action scene would come out of nowhere. But they were pretty good action scenes, so then you're like, oh, this is pretty fucking good. But then you get back to the exposition, and that's when it starts dragging again. Alright, enough bitching, here's my final thoughts. It's a movie that has an interesting premise that makes you wonder what it's building to, but the script and most of the characters in it just make it kind of a drag to sit through, and the plot's confusing for a good chunk of the film until the end portion. The opening was exciting, and then it kind of starts to drag for a good portion while it's trying to slowly piece everything together, and then it picks up again near the last third of the movie. I'm not grading films anymore. I'd say give it a watch just because I like where the film goes in the last third act, and it pieces itself together really well. Just know that it's going to be confusing for the first good chunk of it because it's trying to piece everything together for the ending. It's not a bad movie, it's pretty alright. It's just not something to flock to the theaters in the middle of a pandemic for.